Well, some days when you wake up, it feels like the world has gone mad. Well, nowhere is that more apparent right now and more evident than in the state of Colorado. This week, where the Colorado House Committee has voted 7-4 to pass a crazy transgender bill that makes misgendering a discriminatory act. Even worse, it takes children away from parents who deadname or misgender a child, and it pushes crazy gender ideology in all schools, including private and charter schools. Not surprisingly, I know this might come as a shock to many of you, that every Democrat voted for this madness. But someone who's brave and actually cares about children and cares about Colorado families is GOP Representative Jarvis Caldwell from Colorado's 20th House District. He voted no on this. And we just peeled him away from the House floor because they've been in the middle of all sorts of fights right now down on the House. Representative Caldwell, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you covering this topic.
Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, it's not just about Colorado. I mean, this is a madness that has, of course, permeated the United States of America and pushing this gender ideology into our children at the school level. So just at a nuanced level, can you just talk about how this bill would affect families?
Yeah, absolutely. So this bill has 9 different sections to it. So it actually has a very wide range of what it's trying to do with this transgender ideology nonsense. So the first portion of the bill, as you mentioned, it has to do with custody. And what it does is it directs courts to give the paramount consideration is the word they use, but basically give preference in a custody dispute to the parent who affirms the gender of the child instead of the parent who maybe wants to get the child treatment. And, at its core, I'm a bit cynical from all I've seen here in Colorado. I think that is the goal. I think the goal is to no longer allow you to try to get treatment, because in order to try to give your child treatment, you have to, in a sense, misgender them and tell them, no, you're not really that other gender. We're going to take you to the doctor or a counselor. We're going to try to get you treatment. But what this bill is saying is if a parent is doing that and not recognizing or affirming that gender, then that is the same as child abuse. But the word they use is coercive control. And the definition of that, it's child abuse. So they're saying you're abusing your child by not affirming their gender. So that's just the first portion of the bill. There's a school aspect to it as well, as you had mentioned, and that's section 5. So to give you background, I'm a charter school board member down in Colorado Springs, and we have a gender-based dress code, which is we have boys' uniforms and girls' uniforms. Now, if a child wants, say it's a biological boy and he wants to wear girls' uniform. By law in Colorado, we can't necessarily refuse that, but there's a process. We bring the parents in, we sit down, we discuss it, and if in the end that's what the parent wants, by Colorado law, we can't deny that. What this bill is saying, you can't even create a gender-based dress code anymore. And in committee, I specifically asked the bill sponsor, Lorena Garcia, this. I said, when you're saying we can't create one, you're saying we can no longer have boys' uniforms and girls' uniforms. And she said, yes, that's correct. And I said, so the flyer that we give out with approved clothing for boys and approved clothing for girls, what you're saying is we just have to have a flyer that just has a bunch of articles of clothes and say wear whatever you want. And she said, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's another aspect of this bill, and it's section 3. And what it says is if Colorado will not recognize court rulings from other states if it has to do with the one parent bringing the child to Colorado to get gender affirming care. So think about a situation like this. You're in Kansas, you have 2 parents. One of the parents brings a child to do gender affirming care in Colorado because it's pretty much the Wild West here and there's no rules on it. And let's say this Kansas, the state of Kansas has a court ruling that says the custody belongs to this other parent that's still in Kansas. You have to bring that child back. This bill is saying, no, basically what we're calling it is like a transgender sanctuary state. They're saying we won't recognize that. And that goes directly against Article 4, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, which is also known as the Full Faith and Credit Clause, which says states must honor and recognize and abide by court rulings in different states. So that's another aspect to it. And then the last very big piece of this bill is about the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. And what it says is you can't misgender somebody in a place of public accommodation. And if you look up the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, a place of public accommodation, the word public is in there, but what it actually means is private businesses. It means, and there's a list in there. I mean, hotels, restaurants, airports, anywhere. And so if you are a business owner and you misgender someone, you can be in violation of the Anti-Discrimination Act.
So if you have an employee who is one day dressing up as a girl, the next day decides to be a boy, and you call that person by their former biological name, you could face all sorts of problems. So, I mean, what kind of penalties are we looking at for a business owner?
Absolutely. So you could face like civil liabilities, much like if you recall the Jack Phillips case here in Colorado, right? Which is in my opinion, a First Amendment free speech case. And what they're saying, apparently Colorado has learned nothing, because the Jack Phillips case is here in Colorado, right? The baker who refused to bake a cake for certain individuals. And what we're now saying is we're basically ignoring that and saying, okay, we're going to apply this to all businesses. I don't understand how the bill sponsors can think any bit of this is constitutional. This is definitely going to drive a lawsuit. I was confident that this bill was going to die in the appropriations portion, the appropriations committee, which is where it goes after it went to the Judiciary Committee, where I heard it, because it had a $14 million price tag, $13 or $14 million price tag. So in committee, what they did was they amended out that portion and brought it down to $0. And that means that it doesn't have to go through appropriations anymore. And Colorado has a $1.2 billion budget deficit right now. So it would have certainly died in appropriations. But because they removed the fiscal note, it's no longer going there. So I don't really see any roadblock for it to go all the way to the governor's desk at this point.
And Jared Polis will likely sign it. I mean, I'm clearly he's going to be running for president. I think it's pretty clear to most of us who watch Colorado politics that so Governor Polis will likely sign this thing, and this will become the law of the land. And then, of course, this is going to be probably fought in the Supreme Court because, well, you have President Trump's executive order, which forbids key pieces of this. So they're moving forward with it regardless of what President Trump's executive order has signed.
Yeah, I would love to see President Trump, and I should just say we have Republican congressional members here, and I don't want to speak for them, but they're either already aware of this or they're going to be made aware of this. And what I would like to see is pressure coming down from the White House on Jared Polis, saying, if you sign this into law, you're in violation of my EOs. You're violating the rights of parents. You're violating school choice. You're violating First Amendment rights. You're violating the full faith and credit clause. This is going to put certain things in jeopardy for you if you sign this. And maybe that pressures Governor Polis to not sign it, which would be my hope. But, I think with Jared Polis's political ambitions, future political ambitions to run for president, because I think you're absolutely correct. I think he will run for president one day. He has to look at how this last presidential election went and think to himself, this is not a winning issue for me. And so I hope maybe that's what convinces him to veto this bill if it comes to that, which obviously I hope it doesn't even get that far.
Yeah, I mean, do Coloradans actually want this? I mean, do these Democrats have science on their side somehow that, hey, splitting up families and pushing this crazy gender ideology, we've got the science to back it up. And are Coloradans coming out in the streets saying, yeah, we want this. We want this. We want you to destroy families. We want discrimination. We want civil penalties for people who misgender somebody just because, biologically you look like a man. So I called you a man. And now I'm going to be hit with a lawsuit because you look like a man, because you have an Adam's apple and you were born a man just because you're dressed. We have to go along with, I'm just so angry. We have to go along with this charade just because you want to wear a dress. Now I need to face civil penalties because I call you a biological man. It's madness. Where do Coloradans come down on this in your district specifically? I know you don't speak for all of Colorado.
I mean, my district is it's a very conservative district, and I can tell you for sure. I mean, I ran on parental rights and school choice and those kinds of issues, and I won pretty overwhelmingly. So I know my district doesn't want this. But frankly, you know, and like you said, I can't speak for all Coloradans, but I don't think the majority of Coloradans want this. I think this is one of those situations where it was a complete like advocacy bill, and you had certain groups that are very far left pushing this, and I brought this point up on social media that in actually I brought this up in closing arguments too. In committee, we heard a bunch of different people testify in favor of this bill, and they talked about how the stakeholdering went and that they've been working on this bill for over a year. And that completely caught me off guard because this bill was introduced this past Friday on March 28th. It was introduced on Friday evening after we had left for the day and no one was tracking it. Nobody was there and heard it be introduced. And then on Monday afternoon, they just kind of nonchalantly, the chairman of the committee said, "Oh, and by the way, we're going to hear House Bill 1312 tomorrow in committee." And, you know, myself and other Republicans were like, well, what's House Bill 1312? We haven't even heard of this. And then when we went and looked it up, we realized just how crazy this bill was. So we had less than 24 hours to organize and to get our people together to come testify against this. And I mean, I think we had a great showing. There's 220 witnesses, and it was split pretty evenly between the fors and against. And so with under 24 hours, and they had a whole year to plan for it, I think the Coloradans really came out strong, especially parents.
Well, hope we bring more awareness to this story. This could creep up in state houses across the country, and I hope that we can put a stop to this madness. And by the way, I should say that the 20th House District in Colorado is lucky to have you as a sane member of the state house. Representative Jarvis Caldwell, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, sir. Appreciate it.